Welcome to Sunrise School Division regular board meeting for May the 4th. My name is Paul Mang, I'm the board chair. We're going to call our meeting to order at 7:01, and we are going to have O Canada from Gillis School. Please stand if you can do so. Thank you to Gillis School, much appreciated. 1.3 on our agenda is our treaty acknowledgement and Trustee Pachakowski. Trustee Pachakowski, I think you might be muted.
Sorry, it's delayed. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thank you, Trustee Pachakowski. 2.1 is the adoption of our agenda. Be it resolved that the board approve our agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by
Trustee Pachakowski.
Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by
Trustee Rowland.
Trustee Rowland, thank you. Any questions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. So there's 8 in favor and 1 has abstained. Thank you. We have chair's comments on 3.1 of our agenda. And the first thing I'll say is that a reminder that to send all questions to scarleton@sunrisesd.ca. Name and address of sender must be included in the email. So that's scarleton, CARLETON @sunrisesd.ca. If you have any questions for tonight. To share a story, I'm going to share a few stories with you. I want to thank Saugeen Chief and Council, Chief Henderson, and the Health Director Sanderson for giving the opportunity for our staff at Parvey School to be vaccinated this week. Goes to show you what friendly Manitoba is all about. It's neighbors helping neighbors. So thanks, and all the teachers and all the staff were able to get vaccinated. Thanks to Paul Bernard from the IERHA, Primary Healthcare Director, and Principal Trevor Reed for facilitating this. I also want to thank out to our teachers for ratifying the collective agreement offer. Thanks very much for going ahead and doing that. And I also want to share a project that I heard of today about Parvey School, the Parvey School tourism class. And what they're doing is that they're repairing old bicycles that people are donating to the schools, and they're giving them out to the community. So nice work goes out. Shout out to the teacher, Paul Schramm, at the tourism class at Parvey School. Kudos to them. Is there anybody? Is there anyone else that has a story to share?
Trustee Pachkowski.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick. Once again, I want to praise the Parent Advisory Council out at École Beaujeu Earlier School. Again, there's not a lot of councils that are meeting throughout the division during these unprecedented, very different times, but they continue to meet monthly and continue to do great work for that school and all of the students in that school. So I just want to commend them publicly. I really don't think that there's a lot of parents in my community that understand the work that goes in that those folks do. And I just wanted to, again, recognize the work they're doing and they continue to do when many other councils throughout the division aren't actively doing that. So just a shout out to them. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else shares?
Trustee Duma?
Go ahead, Trustee Duma.
I'd just like to recognize Trustee Inslee. She was recently featured in an article called Country Living in Springfield, the May issue, and it's a wonderful article, and they do make note in the article that she is a trustee for the Oak Bank area. So if anyone has a chance to read it, it's a really nice article. So I just wanted to recognize the write-up. It was quite well done.
Thank you, Trustee Duma.
Thank you, Diane.
Anyone else want to share a story? Okay, we'll move on. And a correction went to the agenda. It was 8 in favor. I said 1 abstained. It was 1 that was opposed. Thank you. 4.0 is our language and programs and second language learning. We have a presentation. So Kathy, I'll ask you to introduce that presentation, please.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we are bringing is some of our languages programming, and my assistant superintendent, Jackie Julian, is going to take you through some of the information about that. So if you're ready, Jackie, I think it is all yours. Are you good with your?
I am. I just can't seem to get my presentation up there.
Do you want Scott or I to do it, or you've got that little arrow button up there? There you go. I see it.
Okay, there it is. I thought I had it queued it up and then it disappeared. So,
No further ado, here's Jackie.
okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Trustee Pachkowski. Just want to remind trustees to mute their mics when they're not speaking.
So Scott, I guess you're going to have to flip it for me.
You bet, Jackie. You give me a heads up when you're ready for the next slide.
Just wanting to share a bit of exactly that, just information on our French immersion, Ukrainian bilingual, and our early start in French communication and culture programs that we have in all of our schools across our division. So it's a lot of help putting this together quickly with Lars Spielberg and Suzanne Deanspear, program leader for languages and literacy, as well as Jen Baker and Jamie Wojcik in the office. So again, it's information. It's not a program review, as that would require a much more in-depth examination of our programs. So we can flip, Scott. So the first program I'm going to talk about is French Immersion. So a French Immersion is offered at 4 of our school sites here in Sunrise. So we have a K-8 at Dugald School, K-5 at École Beaujeu Earlier School, 6 to 12 at École Edward Schreier School, and École Parview School has a K-12 French Immersion program. Our students after grade 8 at Dugald who continue in French Immersion go to Collège Pierre-Elliott Trudeau in River East Transcona. So there's some enrollment numbers there that I'm sharing. Our enrollment in French Immersion has been consistent and increasing in some of our sites throughout the years. We can flip. So a little bit about French Immersion programming. It is a program that's designed for non-Francophone students. And the goal is that students would be able to communicate both socially and professionally in French. The parents do not need to have a background in French to enroll or understand or speak French to enroll students in the French Immersion program. It's designed for non-Francophones. Flip. French, in Sunrise, we offer 2 points of entry for French immersion programming. So the first is at K, so a student can begin in the kindergarten, and the second would be grade 1. The instruction for French immersion program is entirely en français. So other than their English language arts period, the instruction throughout the specialty courses and core courses is completely en français. We also offer Ukrainian language programming at 2 of our sites in Sunrise. So Oakbank Elementary with K-5 programming and Springfield Middle School with 6 to 8. I wanted to add here that I put Springfield Collegiate Institute, but really it's any high school in our division. There is a challenge for credit option available. So we will often see students from our Ukrainian bilingual program challenge the credit so they can write an exam with the department, and if they are successful with the, say, the grade 12 level, they are granted 4 credits for grade 9, 10, 11, 12. They can do that for Ukrainian. They can actually do that for any language with the exception of Français, because we do have Français programming in Manitoba. At OBE, our Ukrainian language programming runs alternate days. So the students in the program do a day in English programming, and then on the alternate day, they have Ukrainian language programming in 3 core curricular areas. So with Ukrainian language arts, social studies, and health. And then when the program continues for grades 6 to 8 at Springfield Middle School, the students who are continuing in the Ukrainian language programming receive their programming during their ELA time. So there's a focus during the ELA time on Ukrainian language outcomes with those students, about 11 to 14 periods a cycle. Yeah, you can flip, Scott. We also offer early start French in our schools, and that's for all students in K to 3. The focus in an early start program is about exposure. So it's exposure to simple language for communication. It's always usually around a theme, and the focus is really on being able to listen to the language and get some simple sentences in speaking the language. After grade 3, so on the next slide, we have French communication and culture. So that's offered grade 4 to 12. And the focus remains very strong on listening and speaking. And it's giving students an opportunity to have an appreciation of culture and the French language. So all our schools have either early start or French communication culture, depending on their enrollment once you get into grade 12 and what the students are asking for in terms of credit options. On the next few slides, I wanted to share, I don't know how many people are aware of the French Revitalization grants, but many of our schools across our division apply every year for French Revitalization grants and have been doing so for many years. Not just our immersion schools, we also apply for French Revitalization grants for our French communication and culture. So I wanted to share just a few highlights of what's been happening over the years with the French Revitalization grants, and we've been very successful with these in Sunrise. So at Beausejour Early Years School, for example, they have been working, their French Revitalization grants have mostly been a focus on a learning coach, an instructional learning coach. So they'll hire a French-speaking teacher to support both teachers and students in the acquisition of the French language. Parview School, and these are just highlights, there's more to the grants. An interesting thing that Parview School has been doing is they hire through the grants tutors for the younger students. So they hire high school students to tutor younger students with the oral French language and whatever homework they have homework clubs. So really interesting project that's been going on for years there. On the next slide, Do Good School, very much like École Beausejour Earlier School, has for years had a French language instructional coach. And again, the position focuses on French language, what came out of the French language education review. Springfield Collegiate has had grants for their French communication and culture courses for years. It supports cultural field trips, activities en français, partnerships of activities between both Springfield Collegiate and Springfield Middle School, bringing students together. And they also do buy some additional French resources for their courses. Springfield Middle School, very similar to SCI, also are successful in grants and focus on cultural activities and the partnership between SCI and SMS and their French communication culture courses. We've also every year applied for and received a divisional grant. Suzanne Deanspear does the application and oversees that grant. We bring teachers together with the funding we get. We do training in French immersion methodology. I don't know how to say it in English. And one of our big goals this year and next year is to acquire baseline data on our students in terms of oral French so that we can actually measure progress over the years. So that's just a snapshot of some of the grants and what they're about across our division. The next few slides, looking specifically at École Edward Schreyer and École Parview School, which has the high school French immersion programs. In Manitoba, to obtain a provincial French immersion diploma, a student needs to acquire 14 credits en français. So this was just a snapshot of the types of courses that our students can enroll in where the instruction is en français. So this first slide is Edward Schreyer School. These will obviously change from year to year depending on enrollment and what the students are asking for. And on the next slide, I have a snapshot of École Parview School and the courses that they offer for their high school students. I have a slide. The next slide is around teacher recruitment. And in Sunrise, provincially, it is challenging. Teacher recruitment for French immersion in particular is a challenging job. We in Sunrise are members of the jobimmersion.ca, which is a national platform that was just created in February of 2021. So we do use that. We also actively recruit with Université de Saint-Boniface. And we're also a bit unique in that two of your senior admin are bilingual. We have a bilingual program leader and we have bilingual administrators. So certainly between all of us, we tap shoulders and get out there and see what we can do to recruit some French immersion teachers and ensure that they know the support they're going to get as a French immersion teacher in Sunrise. The next slides, I'm not going to read through them one by one, but I did want to add this lit review. It's all on the impact of second language learning. And what I've done is I've taken out highlights of the different impacts. There's cognitive, academic, personal, societal, intercultural, economic, and students with exceptionalities. So I'm just going to go through the slides and maybe highlight one on each slide that I think is pertinent. And of course, you can look at the entire lit review if you'd like on your own. So in the next slide, the cognitive impacts, I just picked the first one there about second language learning in a school context has a positive impact on the development of general cognitive skills of learners. So there's been a lot of research done on that. And I thought that that was a significant one to point out. They're all very important, but rather than read them all, I'll let you guys look through them. And if you have questions, I'll try and answer. The following slide, the academic impact. Again, I'm looking at the first one because this has often been a worry. Having been a principal in French immersion school, I heard this often. But children who learn a second language show either comparable or enhanced first language literacy. So this is often a worry of parents about, well, if I put them in French immersion, will they lag behind in their first language? And there's a lot of evidence and research that shows that, in fact, that isn't the case. The following slide has some bullets about personal impact. I picked out the second one there to highlight that learning a second language enhances creative ability by promoting a unique problem solving, flexibility, and creative thinking. And these are all research based. The next slide on societal impact. Second language learners demonstrate enhanced empathy, awareness of diversity, tolerance of difference, and a greater sense of social justice. And I picked this one because it is something that our school division has been talking about for a number of years, is social justice and citizenship. In the third bullet, they talk about international dialogue, collaboration, and engaged global citizenship. The following slide again touches on the intercultural competencies and again touches on that citizenship piece. On the next slide, economic impact. I think that the one I would pick out is the second language skills are often highly valued and expected by potential employers. So I think that our students with the second language skills do have a leg up when it comes to future, to job opportunities. The next slide with students with exceptionalities is often a big concern as well for parents, for students, even for educators. So the third bullet talks about language learning challenges faced by children with exceptionalities are often not significantly different from those of typically developing children. And importantly is that interventions used to teach second languages to students with exceptionalities also typically benefit all children. So it isn't a reason to not consider second language learning. And I think the last slide just talks about some additional language learners, and there's more information there. So I will leave you to read that on your own. Thank you. I think that's it. If there's any questions, I can try and answer them.
Reed, I have a question.
Go ahead, Russ.
I can see that learning French is a big benefit and has a lot of, it's good for the future as well. I'm just wondering why we don't have French in Lac du Bonnet. We have it in the high school. We don't have it. Are there any plans to bring French in there, since it seems to be such a big help to the kids to learn and everything? So I'll just leave you with that.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly, if not French immersion, any second language learning. So even our French communication and culture courses that can be offered at the high school, if there's the will for it for students, would be something that we should certainly be promoting. And I can't tell you offhand what, if any, of the communication culture courses are offered there, so I'd have to look into it. I also did want to add something that I did want to share is that we have, for the very first time ever, just secured a bilingual psychologist for Sunrise School Division for next year. So we're really looking forward to adding bilingual psychologists to our team.
So can I take that as an indication that there might be a chance we would have some form of French offered in the high school in Lac du Bonnet next year?
I think you can take that as an indication that I'll definitely touch base with the principal and see what the demands would be if there are students who would be interested in French communication and culture if they aren't offered already.
That's the problem, I think. I know I did ask about 3 years ago about the possibility of getting French in the high school, and I was told that there weren't enough people interested. But I thought, well, if we don't try, how do we know how many people are interested?
Right. Yeah, so and
I would like to see it offered. If
I would. Possible. I certainly agree with you, and I think it's something that I can touch base with Chrissy and look at how can we promote it and how could we offer it? Do we have a teacher who could teach it? So certainly would agree with you, and I will definitely look into it.
Okay, thank you, because I don't know that there's anybody there that could teach it, but it may necessitate hiring another teacher. I don't know, but we've been doing a lot of that lately, so it might work out. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Kat. Thanks, Jackie. Anyone other questions for Jackie?
Trustee Pachkowski here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. It's more of a comment. I mean, I'm really grateful that our division has the French immersion program. I know my wife and I both went through it. I'm starting to read a little bit more French. So I do apologize if I butcher this a little bit, but I just wanted to try and speak in French, and thank you for your presentation. So I'm going to give it a go here. This is my first time since being a trustee that I'm going to do this, but I'll give it a go. So merci pour la présentation. Ma femme et moi avons participé au programme français Immersion, et maintenant mes enfants participent aussi. Nous sommes chanceux d'avoir ce programme dans la division, et c'est bon de voir l'inscription, et c'est bon. Merci. Thank you. And that was that. Thank you.
Bienvenue, Jared. That was awesome. That was awesome.
That was pretty good,
Merci
Jared.
beaucoup.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Questions?
Trustee Rowland here.
Go ahead, Trustee Rowland.
Jackie, you had mentioned that for the Ukrainian program and the high school years, there was opportunity for challenge exams for credit and other languages as well, you had mentioned. Who coordinates that? And is that like it's handled at the school, but who would be responsible for coordinating that?
So in the schools, the student services team would typically be the ones who would coordinate it. So we put it out to the students that they can challenge for credit. And again, it's not for French or Français. So it would be, we've had students do it for German, for Russian, Ukrainian. It is, if the students are doing the challenge for credit, we do offer to pay for them to do the challenge for credit. And if they're successful, they can get up to 4 credits, 4 high school credits.
So just to clarify, if someone wanted to do a challenge exam in Russian, who would you be calling upon to facilitate that exam?
So the student services folks in the division will let the students know what the dates are, and then they sign them up. The student then has to get there on their own. It's typically in Winnipeg, so they go and they do the exam there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So to answer your question is, the province has teachers that will go ahead and invigilate or administer the special language exams. Thanks, Jackie.
I have one follow-up question. Is there like a tutoring or training to prepare students to possibly take a challenge exam in our division?
No, there is not. No.
Okay.
I can add that there is a challenge for credit, procedure in our procedure manual, and it isn't that if a student is challenging for credit, it would be that they are prepared and ready to take the exam. There really isn't kind of any teaching attached to it if they challenge for credit on something, if that helps answer it. I also wanted to give one quick shout out. Kristen, our sub-clerk and receptionist, is also a bilingual staff member of ours in our front office. So just wanted to make sure she didn't get missed.
Any other questions for Jackie?
Trustee Harris.
Go ahead, Robin.
Firstly, thank you, Jackie. I wish I had been more receptive to taking French early on in my lifetime. It could have opened up some doors, and I didn't follow that. 2 quick questions. You had mentioned near the beginning that enrollments in French immersion are consistent but slight growth. Is there any sites in our division that may be needing an additional teacher in the near future?
I do not think so. Kathy normally staffs for regular instruction on what our enrollment is. So I can't say what might happen in the future if there's more growth, but I imagine if there's more growth, there would be a need for more staffing.
Very typically what happens, Robin, is that if we have a school that's half English and half French, sometimes it tips to 2/3 English and 1/3 French, or 2/3 French and 1/3 English. So we try to do some of that staffing so that we have bilingual teachers who can work in either language.
Good, thanks. And I'm not sure how to word this question. Percentage-wise, how does Sunrise compare to other school divisions in terms of our language program enrollment? Is that even a stat that's available out there? Like, are we above average in percentage-wise of demand and interest by students?
I'm not sure I could answer that, and I'm actually looking at the slide that that's up right now on the enrollment, and I just noticed that there's an error there. It's actually École Dougald School at 374 and Beausejour Early Years at 184. So I had corrected that, so I have a feeling I brought up the wrong slide. So I just want to correct that now. Dougald is 374 French immersion, and École Beausejour is 184. And Robin, I'm not sure, but I think I could probably get information about that.
It may not even be important. I'm just curious. Do we have a lot of families that show an interest in our division? Thanks.
Any other questions for Jackie?
I have one more question. It's Trustee Rowland. So students that attend Dougald School have to, who intend to carry on with their studies in high school, have to go to the city to Pierre Elliott Trudeau School. What number of students are actually going on with that, or is there a tendency or not to just stay within our community and maybe transfer to an English high school, as opposed to having to carry on and go to the city for that? What's our figures on that, if we have?
You know what, Diane, I don't have the figures on me exactly on that. I can just tell you from, having been the principal at Dougald and then at SCI, that I would say that almost all our students will carry on. There's few that don't. The other interesting thing to look into is how many go and stay for the 4 years or come back at some point during their high school. So those are things I would want to look at if I was doing an actual in-depth program review on, how many of our students are going. I would say for all the years I was at SCI, 97% of the students did continue to CPET, but I did start noticing a trend that some might come back in grade 10 or 11. But I think that would be part of an actual program review.
And what's a sort of an average graduating size for the grade 8s in Dougald?
Kathy, I'm not sure if you have what their latest enrollments have been, but.
Give me a second and I'll look it up.
Just was wondering how many kids are actually moving on outside of the division.
Yeah.
I have a kind of a follow-up question, or a question in the same regard. So in Springfield, I know, because that's the French immersion enrollment at Dougald has increased dramatically over the last few years. And I just wonder, is there a very loud group of parents or community members that would rather have their students attend high school in French immersion in their community, or is there not so much of a push and there really doesn't seem to be that pressure to do that?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that either without going into kind of a full program review and then maybe getting feedback from parents. Christine Federley actually just texted me. She must be listening to our meeting, and said that there's about 40 to 50 kids every year that are going to CPET. And in terms of your question, Jarrett, again, I think that would necessitate kind of maybe some, in a program review, doing some surveying with parents. I would only be guessing, and it would not be correct.
Okay. Yeah, I posed the question because, we have those numbers are increasing dramatically at Dougald, and I think it would be really nice to have, I wonder how many more kids would stay in the program if it was offered in our community, right? And I mean, it's not like we don't have the population or the numbers there to do it. It's just interesting, and I think, we should be doing everything we can to keep those students in that program throughout their entire school, right?
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that it would be worth looking into.
Christine
So-
beat me to it. Oh,
Go ahead,
Christine beat me
Kathy.
to it. It's the grade 8s across the next couple of years are 40, then 31, 25, 37, 50, 38, 46, 51, and then I dropped off at kindergarten grade 1 there.
And I'm just wondering, do we have any information about how our students are doing when they go to the high school and are going to a different division? You know, is there any data or feedback about our students' performance in a different division?
So again, I can only speak anecdotally there from certainly when I was the principal at SCI and I would communicate with CPET, or when I was the principal at Dugald, I was certainly always communicating with CPET and was always told that our students performed very, very well when they went from Dugald to CPET. But again, I think that that would be the sorts of things that we would dig deep in if we were doing a program review. And for tonight, really, this was just information about all our language programming, but that would certainly be information I would like to dig deep in if we were doing a program review.
Yeah, actually, Jackie, you're in a very unique situation to have been a principal at both the schools, and very apropos, let's say. There's my French. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Jackie, it was pretty fair that when we first did this 15 years ago and we amalgamated, the parents, and Diane Duma, can talk about this as well, is the parents very clearly wanted their kids to go to CPET, and the natural flow was from Dugald to CPET as opposed to coming back into the division. You've looked at having a French immersion program running out of SCI. You looked at it a number of years ago. Maybe think it's time to look at it again as you go forward. But certainly you've been involved in a lot of those discussions as they were moving forward, and so has Trustee Duma. But that was certainly the feeling 15 years ago, was they wanted their kids to go to Collège Pierre-Léchua and wasn't going backwards the other way. Is that fair, Jackie?
I think that's fair. 15 years ago, for sure. That was what they knew, and it's excellent programming. Yeah, I think it's something to look into if we engage in a review of the program.
Yep.
Trustee Duma, just jump
Go
in
ahead.
there.
Go ahead,
Well,
Diane.
just, one of the conversations is always about discussing whether we have enough French teachers to teach at the high school level also. And I think that's one of the challenges, to try to duplicate another high school program next door to another high school program that already is well established. And I think that's one of the challenges. And then it creates competition for the short staff that you already have. So definitely look forward to the program review that will be coming down the way.
Any other questions for Jackie? All right, thanks, Jackie. We appreciate the time and putting into the information that you shared with us tonight. Appreciate it.
You're
We're gonna
welcome.
move on.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to 5.1 minutes. So be resolved, the board adopt the April 20th board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by
Pachkowski.
Trustee Pachkowski, seconded by
Harris.
Trustee Harris. Any comments?
Trustee Duma, I just wonder if you could look at page 5 and just have a look at 8.9 and check out that motion, because I don't think that motion is what happened, and I stand to be corrected. And it's the motion that was put forward by Trustee Barry, and it looks as if there was a vote 9-0, but I don't believe that's what the vote was. And there was an amendment to that. So I wondered if you could just look at that. Maybe Trustee Barry has a recollection on it. 8.9, page 5.
Yeah, you're quite correct. That's the way I recall. We could always just hold off and deal with those minutes at the next meeting if Mr. Chairman wants to.
Because I don't believe that was 9-0 carried. It was the amended motion was the one. I'm not so sure that reads properly, because that looks as if that one motion was completely supported by 9-0, and I know that it wasn't.
Okay, so we can carry it. Who's going to do those? So Trustee Barry, are you going to look into this, or Trustee Duma, are you going to look back into this, or I'm not sure what you're asking us to do.
Well, it's incorrect, and I just think it needs to be corrected. So I wonder if we could just send it back to be approved at the next meeting, but to verify that motion is correctly written. With
I had it, Trustee Rowland here, I had it as passed 5-3, I believe.
Okay.
So there's
you know
two
what?
motions. One is a 9-0, which I don't think happened, and then 6-3 was the other one. But I'm only questioning the first one, 9-0, because I think that was what brought us into the second one. So I wonder if we could just refer that back to be reviewed and come back at the next meeting.
Okay, we'll table our motion. Thank you. 6.1 is a superintendent's report. Kathy, floor is yours.
Why, thank you. You have my report in front of you. There's a couple of things, and I think in these days of COVID and third wave and vaccinations, there's a couple of things that we just learned about today at a 12:30 meeting. So I'll add those at the end. A couple of quick highlights. Again, graduations are approaching quickly. We are in May now, and we are, I think, 8 weeks away from the end of the school year. So really doing that call out to all of our communities and our schools to stick to the vigilant practices we've been doing so far. It's been paying off, and working to keep people safe. So we're still looking to have graduations in either small groups, I have to put in here, or at the very least individual diploma presentations, because if our numbers keep trending the way they are, that may very well be a reality. So keep at it, folks. Let's keep our communities safe and keep those numbers down. Sunrise is also having a long service and retirement celebration that we've done for years and years and years, but we're going to go virtual this year. So I wanted people to flag in their calendars June 17th. We are going to try and do it as a bit of a premiere event. We're at 7 o'clock. We'll have an album release or a video release, and folks can sit down to dinner with their family and watch long service and retirement celebration. It will remain up on the website, and so people can view it after that. But if we wanted to have a bit of a gala affair to celebrate our folks, that's happening on the 17th. Lots of information in the news in terms of schools going remote. So one of the pieces that I wanted to share that we just heard today, the province shared some numbers with us in terms of how many schools are remote, where are the outbreaks. So right now, the Manitoba Education has shared that there are 3 schools in Winnipeg that have declared outbreaks, 1 public school and 2 private schools. There are 15 schools across the province that are in remote learning right now. And the province has said that they are doing that school by school or region by region or community by community based on where cases are or ability to still have students safely in class. But it was important for me to hear that there were 15 schools across the province in remote right now, because I'm so involved in what's going on in Sunrise, I sometimes don't have time to pick my head up and look around at what's going on elsewhere. What does remote read or what does remote learning look like for everybody? I gave a report in here, but essentially the breakdown is teachers will be in schools, and the only students that will be in schools will be children of essential workers in K-6, or students of essential workers in 7 to 12 who have exceptional needs and can't be left at home on their own. What would happen at the school is not a regular class. It would be time and space for students to participate in the remote learning that's going on. There wouldn't be a classroom and there wouldn't be direct instruction all day. So there's a table there talking about how much time of synchronous learning there is at each grade level, how much independent work per day, and what kind of teacher expectation to expect. Part of me wants to look at that chart and make sure that people know about that, and then cross my fingers and hope that we don't have to go there, and that remote read is one of those fire drill things that we practice but we don't have to use. I also wanted to draw one last piece of attention. Our schools, our staff, our communities, our families have been just doing a bang up job. I've included a chart on the back of my report that kind of helps folks make that distinction about, you know, when should I be keeping my kid at home, when can they come back, and those kinds of things. And our families have been doing a really brilliant job of recognizing that when someone is sick, we need to stay home. We've been listening to Dr. Roussin on the public health protocols, and we've been doing that. But there's a great chart just in terms of what to do and where to go. if we're wondering about when can a student come back to school. I think the only other last piece that I wanted to share that was sort of a new piece from today, the province of Manitoba in the last little bit, and sometimes days run together, has offered out optional eye protection. So they have procured some eye protection that has, I don't wear glasses, the armbands on them. So they're a little more comfortable than the face shields that strap around your whole head. And so those are available as an optional piece for staff if they're choosing to want to have that. Not a mandatory piece of equipment, but the province has made that available. And I think Scott and Derek are looking after getting that into the hands of folks who need it. I think that's all the pieces, but having said that, I'm sure there's new pieces that come up all the time. Questions, if there are any?
Any questions for Kathy? Okay, Kath, thanks for that information. And you know what, we'll keep our fingers crossed about where our schools are. 7 point.
Trustee Duma, could I just just add an additional question to the superintendent's report?
Go ahead.
Just in the fact that it's apparently emergency measures week this week, I guess it's a provincial recognition of emergency measures. And I just wondered if we could get information back to the board of the role of Sunrise School Division in regards to emergency measures and what kind of relationships or agreements we have with the municipalities around us in regards to emergency measures, and what is the role of Sunrise School Division. If we could get something coming back to the board. And I'm just throwing it out there because I think the board would have to agree if that's something to be talked about, but I'd like to just put it out there on the table.
Okay.
And the chair could tell me, advise me what I do with that information, or what would you like to do with it?
I think that part of it, you're asking for a request, and it would certainly need to go around to the board to see if that's direction that we want to give to Kathy. I guess we just need to figure out a way how we go ahead and do that. How about if we, how about if I send out an email and get responses back from the rest of our trustees, if that's something that we want to go ahead and do, and then give direction to the superintendent. Is that okay, Trustee Duma?
Yeah, that sounds fair. Thanks.
Okay. So,
can I ask? Yeah, I didn't have a chance to
go ahead, Don. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want some clarification where it says student or household member is sick. I'm assuming that you're talking about being sick by one of the symptoms, not sick in some other ways.
Yeah, so in terms of isolating as a household, so the isolation as a household has to do with COVID-related symptoms. Staying home when you're sick has to do with stay home when you're sick, no matter how you're sick.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any questions for Superintendent Timko? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Secretary Treasurer's report. Scott?
Thanks, Paul. We'll walk through the report quickly. A few things to highlight. Maintenance specifically is working on a couple of projects that we've discussed over the last little bit with regard specifically to COVID, namely the water bottle filling stations and the video intercom systems, both on track to be finished up. In fact, I believe most of the water bottle stations have already been installed. The video intercoms are slated to be completed by the 30th of June. Derek's been very busy lately in maintenance, starting to do some prep work on phase 2, the HVAC replacement at Edward Schreier, which is next big project coming down the pipe. I want to take a second in ICT. Number one, to give kudos to all staff for picking up the slack a little bit. As mentioned, we did lose one ICT tech, and we wish him good luck in his future endeavors, but the rest of the staff sort of had to swoop in and pick up the slack. As it happens when you have to hire somebody, it generally takes a bit of time. But in particular, Lindsay, who works out of our Outbank office, generally is responsible for being the one on the phone when you call with a problem and tries to resolve a lot of problems remotely or over the phone. Did a lot of work in our Outbank schools, picking up some slack there. So I want to give Lindsay a pat on the back and say great job. We got a lot of kudos from our schools in Outbank that we didn't miss a beat and things went really smooth. So that's great. Excellent job all around there. A couple of things in transportation. I'm actually meeting with Jason tomorrow He's been diligently gathering some information about alternative fuel sources. We'd actually talked at agenda that one of the things we were to bring back, so we'll work on bringing it back for next meeting, was a follow-up on particularly electric buses, but we're also wanting to look at propane as well. You know, just see how the costs, number one, of capital to purchase the buses, and number two, the cost of operations compared to what we're doing now, which is largely gasoline. We have some diesel buses, but most of our buses are gasoline. So I'll be meeting with Jason tomorrow, as I said, and starting the process of going through that, and we should have something hopefully to bring back for the next board meeting. Jason's also gone through his fleet now and is looking probably to retire about 10 buses this year. We may start looking for proposals. The challenge with these is the process now over at transportation is when a bus is no longer working or safe to go up and down the road, they generally park it out back in the fenced-in compound and really use it as a source for parts. So many of these buses that we're potentially looking at retiring, they are retired off the road. This is really just, there isn't much left of them once they've been picked over for all the parts. So it's likely we may send those to scrap, but we'll investigate some options with regard to disposing of those buses and bring them back to the board again before next meeting. That's something we'd likely want to do over the summer or even pre-summer to free up some room in the yard. So we'll look at that soon. Finance is working hard. Trustee Magnon mentioned that STA did ratify their agreement, so thanks for that. So we're working hard now on getting that agreement formalized in terms of a full formal agreement, and then of course our payroll and finance folks working hard to calculate retroactive pay and fulfilling our obligations with regard to that new agreement. So that's my report quickly, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Scott? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Report looks good. 8.1 is COVID costs and other spending. You've presented that for information. Is there anything that you wanted to add, or are there any questions for Scott?
Just one thing I'll highlight super quick, Paul, is that you know, I brought back March COVID costs. I hadn't quite completed April yet, simply because I did this report on Friday, which was still I believe the 29th on Friday or whatever it was. So we'll be finalizing that quickly. I think we're being quite conservative when we assess our COVID costs, and really that's because, you know, when we've hired personnel, I put them in at the highest grid just for the purposes of conservatism so that we didn't overspend on our COVID funding. So I think we're in a pretty good spot when it comes to making sure we have sufficient COVID funds to cover our costs. Just wanted to highlight that.
Thanks. Any questions for Scott about the COVID costs?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Barry.
Go ahead, Trustee Barry.
It's not so much questions as clarification. I see there's a few columns you have there for employees and employee benefits. That's quite self-explanatory, but there's a couple of columns that are very small little numbers. I'm kind of confused why you'd have such a small little number in a couple of columns. So maybe we should just review those again. Very small little amount. Some of them's in the cents figures.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that, Trustee Barry, but oftentimes what can happen is we record costs when we've committed to purchasing something. So we put a PO in, and then when the actual product comes in, it may be slightly more or slightly less than the purchase order. So we'll make very small adjustments, but I'll review that just to make sure it's correct and clear.
No, it's not purchase order, it's staffing cost.
Oh, that likely
it's employee.
Yeah, if they're small amounts of hourly rate, there would be minimal amounts of benefits applied to those rates as well. It could be things like CPP and EI, which could be quite small at times.
This is less than $1.
Yeah.
It seems quite strange to have a column less than $1, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we can consolidate that for sure. That would just be the actual costs of each different type of benefit, but certainly I can consolidate that.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions for Scott?
I had a question. It's Trustee Rowland.
Go ahead.
Scott, just because I don't have the, well, it's about the identified savings with field trips and PD, and I can't see the whole thing right now. Has that fluctuated? It seems very close to the same, but I thought some of the schools some teachers had found some creative ways to do field trips and stuff that were like online and other means as opposed to the traditional busing field trips. And have we utilized some funds in our educational field trips online, or has that stayed the same from your estimates early on?
No, our projections for the savings have stayed the same. We didn't recoup 100% of those costs at the start of the year and say we weren't going to do anything at all. You know, it may be time to revisit that and see how close our estimates were. But yeah, that 309,000 as it exists in the projections was the estimate from the start of the year. We have done a little bit of that, but I think, you know, for the most part, we haven't spent a lot of money on field trips. We have done, as you said, some virtual things and some online field trips. But again, those are usually attached to minimal cost just because there's no transportation costs and things like that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 8.2, decision-making matrix. This is just for information for us, a reminder. We're continuing to work with, or we did do some work with Colleen Carswell. She's the longstanding trustee with River East Transcona School Division. And so she was helping us on the decision-making matrix. We spent some time over the last little while working on it, and we've committed to work on that from now until December. So that is certainly out there, and it's for us to remind us that we're continuing to work on it. 8.3 is the proposed subdivision of the RM of Springfield. Scott, that's for information. Are there any questions from trustees? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on from the proposed subdivision. 8.4 is the ad hoc minutes committee update. So Diane, that's you and your committee that did some. You've got some. Again, that came to us, but we did want to get it on here. It's not for debate. It is for information. Diane, is there anything else that you wanted to share with that?
No, I'm just asking people to read through it. I know it came in late, so it's not fair to ask people to speak to it, but read through it and give feedback later, I guess. Thanks.
Nice work with your committee. Hopefully that we've got a little bit of a blueprint so that we can give that to Stacy and be clear with her. So thanks for that. It is something I'm assuming then that this will come up because we will look forward to are we looking to discuss it or try to put this in policy or send it to the policy? Do you want to talk about the process, Diane?
Well, I think the board had the discussion about this going to the policy committee. I mean, if people are prepared to do that today, I think that's a big ask. But I know that the policy committee did, and we did talk about sending it to policy to look at it, massage it, look at it. But we at least got the groundwork started for them.
So are there any trustees that are opposed for us to send this work of the ad hoc committee, the ad hoc minutes committee to the policy committee for them to return to us for finalization? Is there anybody opposed to us doing that, even though you got it late? Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, then let's send that.
So would you like me to just make the motion that the recommendations from the ad hoc minutes committee be forwarded to the policy committee for whatever?
For review?
Yeah. Yes,
I would.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so the motion is that the ad hoc committee meeting, the ad hoc minutes committee, what's it called? Say that again?
Report.
Report, thanks, Don. Be forwarded to the policy committee to bring back as soon as the policy committee can to the board. I need so that's moved by Diane, the seconder.
I'll second it.
Seconded by, was that Don?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Don. Any comments to this? Okay, hearing none. Stacy, I'm assuming that I'm gonna have to vote by hand.
That is correct, yes.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna go round table. Trustee Barry, what do you say?
Yeah.
Trustee Pachakowski? Trustee Pachakowski? I'll come back to you. Trustee Harris?
I'm thinking, yes.
Trustee Rollins?
Yes.
Trustee Duma?
Yes.
Trustee Nickel?
Yes.
Trustee Inslee?
Yes.
Trustee Reed?
Yes.
Trustee Pachakowski?
Yes.
And Trustee Mangia is yes, 9-0. Thank you for doing that. So we've got the self committee, the Sunrise Education Foundation committee update. Who's got this? It's either I don't remember from the meeting. So Scott, who's got this? Is this you or is this Diane?
I think you would go ahead, Scott, but I think basically the committee met and we have some work to finish, and we're going to meet again at the end of May. And basically there's some work that we're waiting to complete, but it's definitely something that we want to get looking at within a short period of time and not have it delayed much longer than the end of this June. And Scott can add in.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, Diane. You know, we've got some follow-up to do, and we'll meet again, I think, within a couple of weeks to get some further clarity and just keep it moving forward. We keep losing momentum on this, so we'll keep it moving forward.
Okay. Are there any questions from trustees? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. 8.6 is long service and retirement celebration update. Kathy, that's you.
Yeah, so I touched on it on the superintendent's report, and if you will look at the item in your ESB, one of the things we have is the chair is going to bring greetings at the beginning of the event, but we also have a trustee who typically does a toast to our long service recipients and a trustee who records a toast for our retirees. So we are looking for folks who are interested and willing and wanting to do that. So how you'd like to fill that, I don't know.
Are you looking for that right now, Kathy?
I
Do you need that right
can,
now?
No, I can do emails if people want to email me, if people want to say so now, whatever works for you guys.
Anybody want to jump out right now? Or is it something that we'll send to you and ask you to do? Okay. So then Kathy will touch base through email with people. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Kath. I saw that report. Nice. 8.7 is our policy 16.1. And we have a recommendation. Be it resolved that the board create a new section 6 within policy 16.1 to say the superintendent will provide the board with a monitoring report on an annual basis regarding the management of school funds. See procedure DBB in the form of a year-end schools fund report found as procedure DBB-E. I think I got that. I need a mover for that report, the mover for that motion.
Trustee Harris.
Moved by Trustee Harris, seconded by?
I'll second it. It's Trustee Nickel.
Trustee Nickel. Trustee Harris, do you want to talk to it, please?
So this, sure, this is based on a motion as a result of a board motion from February, and the recommendation from our policy committee is what you've read. This is specific to policy 16, which is titled Finances, and the subsection 16.1, which is a list of the responsibilities of the superintendent. And we are asking to add item VI, item 6, which reads as you read it out, Paul.
Perfect. Are there any questions then for the policy committee on this?
Just that you don't have VI, you have IV, so you might want to just correct that one.
I just have a question.
Thank you.
The superintendents to provide the board with a monetary report on an annual basis. So when during the year? Is there a, like, during January to December? What months are you asking the superintendent to report?
So at our learning session a week ago, one of the items we talked about were all a whole range of reports, and in that grid was this new report. And I believe in there, I don't even want to guess. It was either the end of June or the beginning of September. Certainly after the principals have had a chance to return those reports back to admin.
Okay, I couldn't remember from that report either, and I've not got it in front of me, so I just wondered if you had it available at the top of your head. So thanks.
Thanks, Robin. Any other questions?
I can ask that one because
Go ahead, Don.
it said year-end, so I think the report was to say as soon as possible in September.
Thanks, Don.
Trustee Duma, question?
Go ahead.
Why do we want this and what do we want to do with it?
So it is based on, go ahead, Kathy.
I think this was forwarded by the board to the policy committee to come up with a policy for the school funds. So we took a look at the procedures DBB and tweaked that to have the student or the school funds included in that, and then found what we thought was the appropriate place for it in policy. But that was under board direction to bring back by May 18th, I believe.
Very clear that Trustee Duma is that we asked about looking for a report about school funds and how school funds were being used and carryovers and those kind of things.
So I
we
guess
asked for that.
I know that because I know what the motion said, but I guess if you want to do something with the information and not just have it, then your timeline should be something closer to June so that you have something to do with it, do you not? Because we also make motions to carry over funds in June because July 1st is the new year. So that's why my question is, if you want to do something, if there's a reason to take action on anything, I think waiting till September is would not meet the reason for having the information. So that's why I'm asking.
So that is a good point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Can I answer that?
Oh,
you can't have the end of June because it's a fiscal year, so you go from September to June, so you can't get a report before the end of June. Otherwise, the report doesn't make sense because, and when you do accounting, you do from July the 1st to the end of June. So we don't meet in July. So I guess the earliest we couldn't have it in August, in the last meeting in August too. But it makes sense to do the first meeting in September. So that's why when we talked about it, we were saying as soon as possible in the first week in September.
Go ahead, Kath.
yeah, so in the procedure, it talks pretty specifically around the dates that principals need to get that report to the Secretary Treasurer, and that report on the status of their school funds has to be by the end of June of each year. And Don is totally correct. We have to do that accurate to June 30th because that's our fiscal year. So we can't bring it sooner than June 30th. To give that accurate statement. The report to the board is then just on the school funds, and which isn't a budgeted amount, and Scott can jump in if we're off with this. These are collected funds from families and not part of our budget process. So we can come back to the board at any point and say, what do you want to do with that?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Kathy, and it's kind of been something that we haven't focused on over the last few years. So we've kind of, you know, they've ballooned a little. I don't want to say ballooned, but you know, the purpose for them is maybe not watched or maintained as closely as it should be. So I think this is just a process to make sure our administrators are keeping an eye. Certainly I'm keeping an eye on that the information is coming to the board. So if there is something that needs to be changed, at least that information is being presented on a periodic basis.
I guess the question that that maybe Trustee Duma is also asking is that if we need to look at changes or give directions to changes come September, October, or when that report comes in early September, is that timely for be able to go ahead and do that? And it probably is. So that can all work, in my opinion. Diane, did you want to add anything?
No, I just think we know what we're asking for and what we want to do with it. So thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll vote then. And that was passed 9-0. Thank you. We're on to 8.8 Policy Committee Update. Chair Harris, anything that you want to share?
No, we have a meeting scheduled for a week from this Thursday, May the 13th. So we'll have more information coming back at our next board meeting, I assume, after that meeting.
Thank you. 8.9 is our Finance Committee Update. Chair Rowland.
Just to inform you that our chair, Paul, will be the check signing or check register, check signing authority for next month. And we have a check register to approve today.
Okay, so be it resolved that the board received the March 2021 check register with total amount of checks issued at $3,490,504.48 received on April 29th, 2021 by the Finance Committee for information as submitted. So this is motion by Trustee Rowland, is that right?
Yes.
And it's seconded by?
Trustee Duma?
Trustee Duma, thank you. Any questions to this? Hearing none, we'll vote. And it was passed in 9-0. Thank you. 9.0 is professional development. I don't think that we have any informational reports. 10.0 is a financial monitoring report, and there is not one. 11.0 is board correspondence. So we have correspondence from the Minister of Education to all the board. Better Education starts today. And there's a letter then me sending to the superintendent. How do I say his name properly, Kath? I'm gonna botch it. Definition.
Tim Definition. Good job.
Okay. With regard to potential meeting, nice to know items. You've got the Northeast Municipal Forum, May the 10th, and our board meetings. Press releases. Scott, 14.1 is questions from the public. Do we have any?
We do not, Paul.
Okay. We do not need to move back into camera, but we do have two motions from in camera. Our first motion is, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations of the Secretary Treasurer regarding the disposition of the surplus property at 332 3rd Street North and proceed with closing the sale subject to approval from the province of Manitoba. I need a mover and a seconder to it. Moved by?
I'll move it. Trustee Nickel.
Trustee Nickel. Moved by Trustee Nickel, seconded by?
I'll second it with an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
You can't second. Oh,
You can't second with amendment. You can second and then you can make amendment afterwards.
yeah.
Oh, I'll make amendment afterwards.
Yeah. So I need a second.
The only amendment I want is that you say the address.
Stop. All right, just a minute.
Okay.
Let's get this. Let's get someone second it. Russ, you're going to second it.
Yeah, Trustee Reed.
Okay. Art, what's your amendment?
Just that you have the full address, Beausejour, Manitoba. You said 3rd Street North, but you didn't say Beausejour, Manitoba.
Okay, that could be a friendly amendment. Don, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Russ, are you good with that friendly amendment?
Yes.
3rd Street North? Okay.
Yes.
Any questions to the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. Trustee Duma, you need to vote.
I actually got kicked out for the last 2 minutes.
Okay. Can you rejoin
Sorry.
the meeting?
Yeah, I've just rejoined it. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry.
So it was past 9-0. Thank you. And we have the other 17.2, another motion from in camera. Be it resolved that the board approve the recommendation of the senior admin team to hire 4 more itinerant subs starting as soon as possible on a term position until June 30th. So I'm going to move that as trustee Magnon. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, trustee Duma, but I wondered, were you adding in that it was to come out of COVID costs?
Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask that question before we go there. Is that an issue, Scott, if we do that?
I believe the way we're projecting, Paul, you have sufficient funds in COVID costs.
Okay. So be it resolved that the board approve the recommendation of the senior admin team to hire 4 more itinerant subs starting as soon as possible until June 30th to come from COVID expenses. So we make Diana, can we just add Stacy to that to come out of COVID costs? Diana, are you okay with that?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
I will add it on the minutes.
Thanks, Stacy. Any questions to that motion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
I just don't know.
So it's 8 in favor and 1 is opposed. Thank you. I think that we're at adjournment. Trustee Pachakowski, have I missed anything? Kathy, have I missed anything? Scott, have I missed anything?
The only thing I'll mention, Paul, is if trustees wish to attend the Northeast Man Forum on the 10th, make sure you communicate that to Stacy so we can get you the appropriate invite and the materials.
Thank you, Scott. Kath, have I missed anything?
No, I think you're good. Thanks for the time.
Trustee Pachuski, have I missed anything?
Sorry, my thing's taking a while on mute. No, you haven't, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so motion to adjourn. Motion by
Trustee Pachkowski.
Trustee Pachakowski. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Stay safe, everybody.
Okay, everyone.
Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.